In the remote heart of a sprawling, enigmatic forest, 6 close friends embarked on what was meant to be a celebratory camping trip, marking their escape from high school. The forest, ancient and whispering with secrets, was the stuff of local legends, a place where folklore and reality blurred. This wasn't just any camping trip, it was a rite of passage, a chance to solidify their bond before they all ventured off to forge their futures in different directions. The dense canopy overhead seemed alive with rustling leaves, carrying an almost melodic harmony of birdsong and distant murmurs that hinted at hidden creatures. As twilight descended, casting long shadows across the mossy floor, the ambience turned from serene to unsettling. Among the group was Liam, the natural leader with a mischievous grin and an ache for keeping spirits high. Beside him was Jack, analytical and practical, the one who always planned for every possible scenario. Elise brought a vibrant energy, her laughter contagious even in moments of tension. Tessa, loyal to a fault, served as the group's emotional anchor. There was Violet, reserved yet fiercely protective of her friends, and me, the narrator, a quiet observer often lost in thought. Together we made a balanced, if eclectic, group. That balance, however, was about to be shattered in ways none of us could have anticipated. As the last golden rays of sunlight filtered through the towering trees, casting elongated shadows across the forest floor, we threw ourselves into the task of setting up camp in a small, secluded clearing. The scent of damp earth mingled with the crisp evening air, creating an atmosphere that was both invigorating and strangely heavy. Together, we worked methodically, pitching our tents on the flattest patches of ground we could find, arranging our sleeping bags, and clearing a spot for the fire pit. The mundane tasks carried an odd sense of ritual, each of us silently aware that this trip marked a symbolic end to our shared chapter of adolescence. The energy was palpable, a blend of excitement and a nervous edge that none of us acknowledged aloud. Liam, ever the group's unspoken leader, stepped up to gather wood for the fire, tossing out quips about avoiding bears and secret forest cults. His confidence and humor were infectious, but in hindsight, there had been a flicker of unease in his eyes, a momentary hesitation before he ventured alone into the growing shadows. As his figure disappeared among the trees, the rest of us busied ourselves, the clinking of utensils, rustling of backpacks, and occasional bursts of conversation filling the quiet space between us. Then it began. At first, it was subtle enough to dismiss a faint flicker of crimson light that danced along the edges of the horizon. It could have been anything: a distant flare, an airplane, or just an optical illusion. UFOs, Jack quipped, his voice laced with sarcastic humor that earned him a round of shaky laughter. But the joke did little to dispel the strange tension settling over us. As the minutes passed, the flashes grew more frequent and intense, their eerie red glow spilling through the dense treetops like liquid fire. The once muted forest seemed to dim further, the natural twilight swallowed by an otherworldly brightness that flickered erratically, like some unseen pulse. By the time Liam returned, his arms stacked with dry branches and his face lined with confusion, the rest of us had fallen into a tense silence, our eyes trained on the strange spectacle above. "What's up with the light show?" he asked, setting the wood down with a thud and glancing skyward. His tone was casual, but there was an edge to it, a nervous curiosity he couldn't quite mask. None of us answered immediately, our attention fixed on the glowing sky and the strange hum that seemed to vibrate just beneath the surface of hearing. Before anyone could speak, something impossible happened. A fire suddenly roared to life in the pit we had constructed earlier, its flames bursting forth without warning or provocation. The sharp crackle of the fire snapped us out of our trance, and we all turned, frozen in place. The sight of the blazing fire left us stunned, our minds racing to explain how it had started when no one had even struck a match. The flames danced chaotically, throwing long, distorted shadows that twisted and writhed against the canvas of the tents and the surrounding trees. And then we saw them. 6 dark figures standing motionless at the edge of the clearing, just beyond the reach of the firelight. At first, we thought they were just shadows, tricks of the flickering flames playing with our senses. But these figures were different, too solid, too deliberate in their stillness. They stood in complete silence, their forms vaguely human but unnervingly indistinct, as though they belonged more to the shadows than to the light. The air seemed to grow heavier, pressing down on us with an invisible weight as our breaths quickened. No one dared speak. The unspoken question hung between us, a silent scream in our minds: who or what were they, and what did they want? "There's only 6 of us," Tessa whispered, her voice trembling. "Who are they?" A chill settled over us, the kind that sinks into your bones and refuses to let go. Liam took a step forward, his bravado faltering. "Hey, who's there?" The figures didn't respond. Instead, they seemed to melt into the shadows, disappearing as suddenly as they had appeared. We huddled closer around the fire, its warmth doing little to dispel the cold dread that had seeped into the clearing. Conversations turned to theories: pranksters, hunters, maybe even fellow campers. None of the explanations felt right. As night deepened, the forest's natural symphony fell eerily silent. The rustling leaves and chirping crickets were replaced by an oppressive quiet, broken only by the occasional crackle of the fire. Shadows around us grew darker, denser, almost alive. Sleep felt impossible, but we decided to pair off and take turns keeping watch. Jack, always the skeptic, volunteered to take the first shift, insisting the rest of us try to rest. Hours later, a piercing scream shattered the fragile calm. We scrambled out of our tents to find Violet and Elise standing near Jack's tent, their faces pale and their eyes wide with terror. Jack lay inside, his body contorted in a way that defied human anatomy, his expression frozen in a rictus of agony. Panic erupted as we tried to make sense of the impossible. "We need to leave," now Liam said, his voice steady despite the fear evident in his eyes. No one argued. We grabbed what little we could and plunged into the forest, the fire still roaring behind us. The path we had taken earlier seemed to twist and shift, the familiar landmarks replaced by unending darkness. The forest seemed alive, its shadows reaching out like claws, its silence punctuated by whispers that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere. As we stumbled through the underbrush, Elise suddenly screamed. We turned just in time to see her being dragged into the shadows by unseen hands. Her cries were cut off abruptly, leaving us frozen with terror. Tessa lunged after her but was pulled back by Liam, who shook his head. "We can't save her. We have to keep moving." Grief and guilt weighed heavily on us as we pressed on. One by one, we were picked off. Tessa vanished next, her desperate pleas for help echoing through the trees before being silenced. By the time it was just Liam and me, the whispers had grown louder, more mocking. The forest seemed to revel in our fear, its labyrinthine paths leading us in circles. "Go," Liam said, shoving the car keys into my hand. "I'll hold them off." Liam, "No." "Go," he shouted, drawing a small knife from his pocket. His face was resolute, his determination unshakable. I hesitated for a moment before turning and running, tears streaming down my face. The sounds of his struggle faded behind me as I pushed forward, tripping over roots and clawing through branches. When I finally stumbled into the parking lot, the sight of the car was both a relief and a heartbreak. I fumbled with the keys, my hands trembling uncontrollably, and managed to start the engine. As I sped away, the forest loomed in the rearview mirror, its secrets and horrors hidden once more behind the veil of trees. The days that followed were a haze of police investigations, sleepless nights, and unbearable grief. Despite relentless searches, no trace of my friends was ever found. It was as though the forest had swallowed them whole, erasing every sign they had ever existed. The forest, ancient and unyielding, had taken them, leaving me haunted by scars both visible and unseen. Even now, I can't escape its grip. In my dreams, I hear the whispers soft, sinister, and close, pulling me back to that cursed place. Sometimes I catch flickers of crimson light in the corner of my eye, a chilling reminder of what I saw. When I turn, there's nothing, yet the sensation of being watched never fades. I know the forest is still out there, cloaked in its eternal silence, waiting. It holds its secrets tightly, luring the curious and the reckless into its grasp, only to claim them as it did my friends. Some places are meant to remain untouched, their mysteries undisturbed. Some fires should never be lit, and some shadows are best left unexplored. And the moral of the story is, trust your instincts and always be prepared when venturing into the wilderness. Ignoring signs of danger can lead to devastating consequences. If you like the content, please like, subscribe, and share the video with others. See you in the next video.